Welcome back to Chat Like a Native. So imagine you're at this dinner party, right?
Oh, okay. Setting the scene.
Yeah. And someone asks you about your childhood. And you just say, well, I lived in a small town. I rode a bike. I played football.
Right. Very factual.
Exactly. Grammatically.
Hmm.
Flawless. But socially, I mean, you kind of sound like a robot reading a Wikipedia page about yourself.
Yeah, it's pretty dry.
It really is. So if you're listening right now, you are about to discover how to completely transform that flat, robotic English into captivating human storytelling that genuinely connects with people.
Which is what everyone actually wants.
Exactly. Over the next few minutes, we're moving way beyond just memorizing more vocabulary. We're going to shift from reciting isolated facts to vividly describing your past habits, your routines, and the changes that made you who you are today.
Using a specific set of grammar tools, yeah.
Right. And to make this incredibly easy to remember, we have a punchy mnemonic for you today. It's the BCN formula.
Oh, I like that. BCM.
Yeah, BCN. It stands for before, change, and now. So before is what your life used to be like. Change is that specific event that altered things. And now is what your life looks like today.
So DCN is basically your blueprint for amazing communication.
It really is. And, setting the mission for this session, we're going to explore the mechanics behind that formula, specifically how mastering phrases like used to, would, and the past simple allows you to, well, finally stop translating sentences in your head.
Which is huge.
It's massive.
When you get this, you stop just giving cold data to your listener and you start sharing the real life behind your words.
Okay, let's unpack this because I think we really need to look at why so many learners currently fail to make that human connection.
Right.
It really comes down to a reliance on lists instead of patterns. Going back to that dinner party example, I lived in a small town. I went to school where I played football. When I hear someone speak like that, I don't really feel anything.
No, it's just data.
Yeah, it feels like they're handing me their resume.
And how do we treat resumes? I mean, we skim them, we look for bullet points, we definitely don't read them to feel some deep emotional bond with the paper.
That is such a good point. You're literally just processing data.
Yeah.
But contrast that with someone saying, when I was a kid, we used to visit my grandmother every Friday.
Instantly different.
Instantly. The whole vibe changes. It's like you're reading them a page from your diary. I mean, one gives data, but the other gives a soul. It gives you this feeling of movement, a before and an after.
Well, what's fascinating here is the psychological mechanism behind why that diary approach works so much better.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Human brains are quite literally wired for narrative. We don't naturally process the world as like a series of isolated facts. If you think about ancient human history, we survived by sitting around fires and sharing stories about patterns.
Like where the food was or what the weather did.
Exactly. So when you move away from simple sentences and start describing old versions of yourself, your routines, your repeated actions, you're tapping into that ancient wiring. Wow, you're controlling time and emotion and detail. You're basically telling the listener, hey, step into this old world with me. And it draws them in because conversation isn't just about information. It's fundamentally about connection.
Connection over information. I really love that framework. So if patterns are the secret to that connection, let's get into the actual tools we need to build them. How do we construct that before phase of the BCN formula?
Right. So we're looking at used to versus would.
Yeah. Where do we start?
Let's start with used to as your foundational tool. So you use used to plus the base verb when you want to talk about a past habit or a situation that is simply no longer true today.
Okay. Like what?
Like, I used to walk to school. The absolute core idea baked into that phrase is change. When you say, I used to walk to school, the listener immediately understands two implicit facts. One, it was a regular habit. And two, you don't do it anymore.
Right. Let me ask a clarifying question here, though. Walking to school is a physical action. But what if I wasn't doing something physical? What if I wanted to describe, like, my personality back then?
Ah, okay.
Like, if I was painfully shy or if I had a certain belief system. Can I use it for that?
That brings up a really vital distinction. Yes, you absolutely can. What you're describing there are past states, so conditions, feelings, beliefs, your identity.
So I can say, I used to be shy.
Exactly. I used to be very shy, or I used to believe success meant money. You're describing who you were, not just what you did. So used to works beautifully for both actions and states. It sets the stage.
Okay, so used to is super versatile. But then we have the second tool, would. Where does that fit in?
So would is specifically for repeated past actions. When you hear someone say, my grandmother would make tea for everyone, or we would sit outside for hours, it has this incredibly warm, reflective, almost cinematic quality.
It does. It sounds like a movie.
But, and this is a crucial non-negotiable rule, would is strictly for actions. It is generally not used for past states.
Meaning, I couldn't say I would be shy.
Correct. That sounds totally structurally wrong to a native ear. For states, how you felt what you believed you must stick with used to.
Got it.
But for physical actions you repeated, you actually have a choice. You can use either.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. Let me just challenge you on this for a second.
Go for it.
If both used to and would can describe past habits, why do we need both? Like, why not just tell the listener to use used to for everything to keep it simple?
I mean, it would definitely be simpler, but it would also become incredibly heavy and repetitive. Imagine reading a story told entirely with that one phrase.
Okay.
We used to live in a village. We used to run outside. We used to play until dark. We used to eat late.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That sounds like a hammer hitting a nail over and over again. Very clunky.
Right. It completely disrupts the flow. The secret to natural storytelling is using them in tandem. Think of used to as the tool that opens the door to the memory. It establishes the heavy lifting, the state.
Right.
And then once the door is open and the listener is inside that memory with you, you switch to would to populate the room with moving characters and actions.
I really like that visual. You open the door with used to,
Yeah.
and then you just let the story flow with would.
Exactly. Listen to how seamlessly it flows when combined. We used to live in a small village. Where's our state? In the evenings, my cousins and I would run outside. We would play until the streetlights came on.
Yeah, that feels much lighter.
It does.
Yeah.
Used to anchors the memory, and would brings the daily actions to life.
It paints such a vivid picture. I can almost see the streetlights. But, I feel like we're missing something here. We have the scene set with used to, the daily action moving with would. That's a great before in our BCN formula.
Right.
But a story without a shift isn't really a story. It's just nostalgia. We need to introduce the element of change.
Which brings us to the missing piece. The past simple.
The past simple. We use that for single completed events in the past, right? Like, one day, I forgot my homework.
Yes. The past simple is the disruptor. It's the moment the pattern breaks. And this is where we bring all three grammar forms together for the BCN framework.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so I used to be very nervous. That's your past state. I would avoid speaking. There's your repeated action. But one day, my teacher asked me a question, and I answered perfectly. That single event, the past simple, breaks the routine.
So what does this all mean? If I can give you an analogy, combining these three tools is exactly like directing a movie.
Okay, I like movies.
Right. So used to is your wide establishing shot. It shows the whole world of your past. Then would is your daily montage, the quick cuts of everyday life, routines. And the past simple is the inciting incident. It's the sudden disruption that kicks off the real plot of the movie.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the reason this combination works so universally is that it maps onto the human experience perfectly.
How so?
Well, people are fundamentally interested in personal growth. Our lives aren't just one steady line. They consist of long periods of routine, which are suddenly interrupted by special moments of realization or change.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so by using the BCN formula, you're structuring your language to mirror how human life actually unfolds.
And I think it's important to note that the change doesn't need to be some dramatic movie plot. You don't have to, save the world from an asteroid.
Not at all. Small, relatable changes are usually the best. Let's build a really mundane, everyday example.
Let's do it.
We'll start with the before. I used to be incredibly disorganized state. I would leave all my projects until the last minute. Habit?
Okay, the scene is set. Now we need the change.
Then one afternoon, I missed a major deadline and lost a client. There's your past simple disruptor.
Ouch. And finally, the now.
Now, I use a simple daily planner, and I feel much more in control. It's incredibly simple, but it has structure, change, and meaning. It's a complete story.
It really is. So we have this perfect storytelling framework. We know the tools. But, as with learning any language, there are traps. Common pitfalls that can instantly break the spell. So let's make sure you, the listener, know how to avoid them.
Definitely.
Trap number one, from what I see, is being too general.
Yes, absolutely. A learner might say, I used to play video games, or I used to study a lot. Grammatically, fine, but narratively, boring.
Yeah, it gives you nothing to visualize.
Yeah.
We're back to handing out resumes.
Exactly.
If I say I used to play video games, you just nod. But if I say I used to sit on the basement floor and play Mario Kart with my brother until my eyes burned, suddenly we are in the room with you.
You can feel the eye strain.
Right. But how does someone find those specific details in the middle of a, fast-paced conversation?
The key is asking yourself memory trigger questions. If you feel stuck, mentally ask, what did my weekends actually look like? What specific food did I constantly eat? What did the room smell like?
Sensory details.
Yes, those sensory triggers pull the rich details right out of your memory bank.
And along with sensory details, I think we need to talk about adding emotion. Grammar builds the skeleton, but emotion is the flesh and blood. If I say, I used to live near my cousins, it's clear, but it's just a fact.
Right. To elevate it, you frame it with emotion. I used to live near my cousins, and looking back, I think those were the happiest days of my childhood, or I didn't realize it at the time, but...
Oh, I love those phrases.
Yeah.
Looking back, I didn't realize it.
Yeah, those framing phrases bridge the gap between a grammar exercise and real vulnerable human communication.
Absolutely. Okay, so if I use used to, add sensory details, and cap it with emotion, I'm golden. But let's talk about trap number 2, because I hear a lot of people say things like, I am used to wake up early when they're talking about the past. Is that just a stylistic choice?
Oh, no, no, no. That is actually one of the biggest, most disruptive grammar traps you can fall into.
Right.
It's a critical difference. We've been talking about used to plus the base verb, I used to wake up early, a past habit. But learners constantly confuse this with a totally different structure.
Yeah.
Be used to plus a noun or an ing verb, like I am used to waking up early.
And what does that actually mean to a native speaker?
It means familiarity in the present. If you say, I'm used to waking up early, you're saying that 5 a.m. is totally normal for you right now, today.
Uh-huh.
The easiest way to remember this is the verb. When you say, I am used to, am is a present tense verb.
Oh, right. The am anchors it to right now.
Exactly. The moment you say am, you force the sentence into your present reality, not a memory.
And we also hear get used to, which is like becoming familiar with something. I'm getting used to my new job.
Yeah.
But the strict warning is mixing them up. You hear the learners mash them together and say, I'm used to wake up early.
Which is structurally chaotic.
But, okay, let me play devil's advocate here for a second. Let's say I'm at a coffee shop, having a great chat, and I accidentally slip up. I say, I am used to wake up early, when I meant I did it 10 years ago. Is it really that big of a deal? Won't they just figure out what I mean?
This raises an important question about our ultimate goal. Yes, they will probably guess your meaning eventually, but by using incorrect grammar there, you are forcing the listener to do mental gymnastics.
Mental gymnastics. What do you mean by that?
I mean, you're making them work too hard. When you say, I'm used to wake up early, the listener's brain hits a speed bump. They stop actively listening to your story. They pause, translate your broken sentence in their head, figure out the timeline, and then have to sprint to catch up with whatever you're saying next.
Ah, I see. It completely breaks the flow of the conversation.
It instantly pulls them out of the emotional spell of your story. Remember, our goal is seamless connection. We want them picturing your childhood basement, not solving a real-time grammar puzzle in their head.
Yeah, you want them lost in the story, not lost in the translation.
Exactly. We are aiming for deep connection, not just bare minimum comprehension. That small grammar difference dictates whether they stay emotionally engaged or get analytically distracted.
That makes total sense. You want the grammar to be invisible so the humanity can shine through. So how do we make sure this becomes second nature? I want to give you, the listener, an actionable takeaway that you can use today.
Love a good practical exercise.
Try a 1-minute recording practice. Choose just one topic from your life, maybe your childhood neighborhood, a job you hated, a hobby you learned. Then use the templates we talked about.
The BCN templates.
Exactly. Start the wide shot with, I used to. Move to the daily montage with, I would often. Introduce the inciting incident with, one day. Explain the result with, now. And end with your emotional framing, looking back.
Beautiful.
Just record yourself speaking for 60 seconds. Listen back to ensure you're combining your states, actions, and changes effectively without falling into that I am used to trap.
It's a fantastic low-pressure exercise. And, as you prepare to do that, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We've spent this entire session talking about the past, describing old habits, old routines, old versions of yourself.
Right.
But I want you to think about your present for a moment. Think about a challenging habit, a difficult situation, or a barrier you are actively trying to break right now in your life.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because someday, hopefully soon, that struggle you're going through today is going to become your next great used to story. The question is, when you finally overcome it, how will you tell the story of the change you're experiencing today?
What a profound way to look at it. The BCN formula isn't just about looking backward. It's a story being written right now in the present. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation today. Remember to practice those patterns, avoid the resume trap, and most importantly, keep sharing your real self and your real stories with the world. We'll catch you next time.